Hello lovelies, my name's Feta and welcome to Fable Academy, where adventurers old and new learn from the best, but usually the worst. If you ask me, one of the greatest gifts ever imparted to the sapient species of the world is the ability to tell stories. Whether we're recounting our childhoods or detailing our dreams for the future, or even spinning a good yarn for the sake of entertaining our loved ones, or getting out of some dumb lecture on the perils of necromancy. And when we're telling stories together in games like D&D, we all know the best parts. The conflict, the drama, the ultimatums, choosing sides, friends to enemies, and enemies to friends, and even a little bit of betrayal thrown in. But what sucks is when people can't keep that stuff in the story where it belongs. Petty drama and infighting is more lethal to an otherwise great campaign than scheduling conflict and rule-breaking combined. But despite the idea that RPGs are supposed to be fun and collaborative experiences, some people still decide to implode everything in a manner befitting the bottom of the reality TV barrel. Our story today is one such tragedy from the endless deluge of r/RPG horror stories, where one case of petty interpersonal beef ruined not just one campaign, but two. Let's take a look. DM destroyed my first D&D campaign out of jealousy. This was my first ever D&D campaign, the one I had been dreaming of playing for years ever since I watched Critical Role Campaign 2 before the pandemic. I had spent weeks trying to find a group. Every night after work, I was on Reddit looking for games, filling out applications and introducing myself. I wrote out backstories, explained my playstyle, and crossed my fingers that someone would give me a shot. Eventually, a DM, we'll call them Frank, reached out saying they had a slot open and I was thrilled. I joined the group chat, met the players, and everyone seemed genuinely welcoming. I built a character I loved, one that fit the setting and story perfectly, and when session 1 arrived, I was nervous but so excited. The first dice roll hit the table and I was hooked. This was the D&D experience I had been chasing. For the first several sessions, everything went great. The group had good chemistry, the story was fun, and Frank seemed organized and enthusiastic. I even started bonding with the other players outside the game. It felt like we had a really solid group. Okay, before we continue, it's worth noting that OP does say in the replies that the time between joining this campaign and what's about to happen was about 6 months. I point that out now because I was starting to raise an eyebrow that maybe OP was rushing things a little when I first took a look at this, but now that I've seen this clarified, I'm a bit more satisfied. Let's continue. Around that time, I started feeling inspired to DM my own campaign. I made it clear that I wasn't trying to replace or compete with the main game, I just wanted to create something too. I invited the same players, including Frank, since they had mentioned wanting to play more often. My game took off right away. Everyone seemed to really enjoy it. I spent time balancing encounters, weaving in backstories, and building the world carefully. The feedback was amazing, and I was proud of what I had built for my first time as a DM. All except one person. The DM I invited was never happy about my decisions and became much more vocal about it when my friends and players would talk about my game right before we started to play in Frank's game, which I assume made them very jealous. See what I mean about originally thinking OP was maybe taking things a little too fast? So far, this is OP's first campaign as a player and first time as a DM, and both times they're jumping into long-term commitments that take a lot of time and effort to keep together. They seem to be handling it all really well, and the other players have all been super supportive, and I have no doubt that everyone was having fun. I just know that I'd be way more cautious before signing up to DM a long campaign as a first-time DM, while in the middle of a long campaign as a first-time player. Hell, I'm currently planning my first DM experience with some friends in the RPG space, and I'm shitting bricks. And it's just a one-shot I got off Etsy that might as well have idiot proof on the cover. I'm not saying OP is at fault for any of this, I'm just saying that so far in the chain of events they've been very fortunate not to run into more problems, which I don't begrudge them for at all. Anyway, then came the session that ended everything. Another player and I decided to follow a side lead that seemed minor. We even asked Frank if it was something we could handle at our current level. The answer was vague, but it implied it would be fine, so we went for it. We quickly learned that it was not fine. It was a major boss encounter that was way beyond our level. We got crushed. Instead of letting us retreat or die, the DM decided we were captured and thrown into the Feywild. I actually thought this could be a fun twist, so I stayed optimistic. The rest of the party planned a rescue mission, and I was excited to see what would happen. When the rescue began, the DM dropped 2 shadow dragons on them. For anyone unfamiliar, shadow dragons are CR 10 creatures. The party was at level 5. There was no build-up, no chance to prepare, and no way to win. The dragons wiped the entire group before half of us even had a turn. It was a total party kill. Frank explained that it was all our fault, that if we hadn't split the party, none of this would have happened. As this was my first campaign and I didn't want to hold another player back for a story moment, I didn't feel comfortable stopping this player character from leading mine into the encounter, so I felt pretty bad about how things turned out. Frank then said it was okay because they were starting a new campaign. After a couple of days though, I noticed some of my players began to say they were leaving my campaign, and shortly after all but one said they were leaving, Frank told me I was not welcome back at their table. And since then I have not spoken to any of my friends or Frank from that campaign except the one who stayed. I asked him why the others had left me, and he said Frank had given them an ultimatum, their game or mine. Since those players were friends with Frank before me, they chose him. That's the end of the story. Wish it ended better, but that's life. Hope you enjoyed. So, Frank chooses to lie to the players about the difficulty of a side quest, then throws 2 enemies double the party's level at them to hose everything, and it's everyone else's fault for splitting the group? The numbers don't add up there. What they're really saying is it's your fault for making me feel inferior as a DM. It almost sounds like big sibling, little sibling syndrome, where Frank here always needed to feel like they were special, they came first, and OP as a newbie couldn't do what they were doing. In short, they were a dick. See, I have a little rule of thumb about ultimatums. 9 times out of 10, the one giving the ultimatum is the one at fault, which is why they're giving it. Case in point, Frank here. This person completely destroyed their own campaign, then their ego wrecked OP's game by making their players choose between them. And by choosing to stick with a DM that shook the table like Frank did, those other players have made their beds to lie in as well. But in all likelihood, Frank probably soured things at their own table as a result of this, already losing one of his other players that stuck around with OP and showing their whole ass to everyone with that T.P.K stunt. When your DM flips the board and blames you for it, that says a lot about what they actually enjoy about these games. I'm not surprised Frank DMs more than they play. OP, you were not at fault here. At worst, you threw yourself in the deep end twice and wound up getting a bad deal with Frank's ego. Honestly, until Frank torpedoed literally everything for everyone, it sounds like you were all having a great time. And on the bright side, it sounds like you found the one good apple in the bunch with that one player that saw through Frank's BS and was at least honest with you about the ultimatum. I know this was a long time ago for you, so I hope you and that player are still adventuring to this day, with better people than Frank and their ilk to share in the joy. But that's just my thoughts on this. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you again soon for our next lesson at Fable Academy.